Hello, everybody. It is great to see all of you here. I saw, um, oh, look. Um, I'm sorry. I gotta spotlight this. Whoa. Well, there we go. Kate, I'm gonna allow you to unmute yourself. Oh no, but it'll be hard to reach the thing. There we go.
I mean, everyone's been bringing their pets lately, so I thought it
That's
might.
right. Nothing like a photo bomb by the horses, plural.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's.
wow. Oh, this is good. We should employ these horses again for a little horse drawing class. You got your hands full with all those little noses. Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, there's some infighting over carrots going on.
Oh, yeah, I
So
want one too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't want to get in the middle of that. We have used the nature journal to fend off Sterling's neighbor.
Aw, aw. Yeah, yeah, it's everybody wants those carrots. Oh,
Oh
that's
yeah.
good. Oh, hello there. Hello there, Sterling.
Here, I'll move him out a little bit so you can see all of him. But come here.
Yeah, yeah, she's got the carrots. Oh, look at that. Oh, what fun. Oh, look at you. You're such a good little, you just go and it's like, okay, I'll turn around.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
I'll
he's great. He's very
yeah.
cooperative with the things I've asked him to do.
Oh, and how often do you ride bareback?
Whenever I'm too lazy to put the saddle on.
Oh, yeah, I saw you mounted up there. That's great. It's great to see the two of you.
Good to be on.
Well, thank you for bringing the pony party.
Absolutely. I'll run inside and get to drawing. Oh my.
Well, happy Pony Day, everybody. This is today's a very important day. It's Pony Day here on the Nature Journal Workshop, and it's Carolyn's birthday. So
Oh,
I want to sending out a happy birthday to Carolyn, who's currently in school, so she can't join our meeting, but this is this is fun.
yeah. Happy
Um,
birthday, Karen.
Yeah, it's going to be a good day. We're going to go. She is very fond of boba, so right after we pick her up from school, we're going to go get ourselves some boba, and she's it's the little things that kind of get us through the day. Um, I'm going to bring on our mad botanist here as well. Avea, it is great to see you today. Any thoughts on the pony party?
It's always fun to see them. They just yeah. Plus the Sterling is a sweetheart.
Like
So
those
Sterling, I say hey.
Okay.
Hey, indeed.
Um, well, we're going to be looking at some drawing birds in a moment, but before we do, uh, maybe Avea, you can let us know what shenanigans are going on in the wide world of nature journaling that people might want to participate in and join.
Absolutely. So some of the fun things we've got going on. Um, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Avea, and I really appreciate your help in wrangling these sessions, and it's great to see you again. There's a lot of fun stuff going on in our nature journal community right now, and really want to encourage people to cross train with a lot of different educators and people who are sharing thoughts and ideas, um, because everybody has just a slightly different perspective and vibe, and um, that can be really inspiring to connect with. Um, and also want to encourage people, as you are able to see what we can do to donate to economically support those individual teachers. It helps us, go. Um, and on that note, actually, should say that, oh, here we go. I made up this. Boom. If you are interested in following my work, you can see more at this website, and I also share things on Instagram and YouTube. But kind of my website is sort of my big hub for that, and you will find recordings of workshops like this one there, and more. All those, also all the educator uh, workshops, the educators forums, and those sorts of things. We've got recordings of all those things there. So if you are interested, that's a great resource, a great place to go for all of those kinds of materials. But today, what I want to do is to work on a couple of basically, I want to do my homework while you're here. Um, I've been uh, some years ago, I wrote this book about the Sierra Nevada mountains, and it's an illustrated field guide to, everything from the plants to the more plants. Oh, bugs, insects, fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, star charts, um, basically everything that I find when I go running around in the mountains. When I was a kid, I wanted to have a book with color pictures of everything that I was looking at. So as a grown up, I decided to make one. Um, so this book, to do the illustrations, took a little over 6 years to do. And when I did that, the first illustrations that I worked on, I went up to the mountains and started drawing wildflowers, and then winter came, and I dropped down to the San Francisco Bay Area and went into the halls of the California Academy of Sciences and used their study skins. They have scientists will take the skins of birds and sort of stuff them kind of like a popsicle, and but you can look at all the feather detail on these specimens and then be able to draw birds. So I did those birds. Um, and that was, let's see, so that means I was probably starting those. 2000 and 2001, 2002 would have been these first drawings. So that is a little while ago, right? And since then, I have been drawing um, lots of birds, lots of other things, and anything that you kind of do on a regular basis, you get better at. So drawing isn't something like where you kind of arrive at this skill set and then that's it. As you continue to do anything, you get better at playing the musical instrument, you get better at speaking the language, you get better at dance, you get better at drawing. So you constantly get better. And so I'm going to go over to this cam and show you, um, these were bird illustrations that I did for that first book. Let's zoom down on that. Right. So these were birds for my first book. And what happened is, then when I went on and did all the other illustrations, that was just a lot more practice. And so as I look at this, some of the illustrations, they're a little bit funky. And So I decided I was going to redraw um, all these for the second edition of this book. And because there's a lot of interesting things that have happened between then and now. Um, there's a number of different species. Things like this western scrub jay. We used to have the sort of the western scrub jay, but this has now been split into a couple of different species. Sort of closer to the coast, this is how the scrub jays look. And if you go over on the eastern side of the Sierra Nevada, they're much more dull and muted, and they don't have this big, much of this big collar mark. So that's now this new species, the woodhouse jay. Um, so sometimes we've split species. There's other things that have happened why this book needs to be redone. You know, since the book was made, wolverines are now confirmed in the Sierra Nevada, and not just one wolverine. We now have at least two different wolverines running around in the Sierra Nevada. The more, the merrier. So the wolverine party is starting to grow. There are now wolves in the Sierra Nevada. Um, and so I get to draw, I get to add in wolves, I get to add in pronghorn, I get to add in elk, and so this needs to be redone, but especially um, the birds. So I have been redrawing my birds. Hold on a second. I'm going to grab some of these. What I was up to last night, I was drawing these two birds. Here is a couple of different species of woodpeckers. Um, this was yesterday working on some of these night herons and owls. So these are all illustrations for the new book. All right, so I'm going to zoom back out. So I'm redoing picture after picture after picture after picture. And it's kind of fun to sometimes take a look at the old one and compare that to the new one. So let's do that. Let's see, where is a redbirds? Yeah, here is zoom in. So here is the pine grosbeak from before, and here is the pine grosbeak now. So before and now. Here are evening grosbeaks. Evening grosbeaks, such beautiful, beautiful, beautiful birds. Go to my yellow. This book is set up by color, so all the red birds are together, all the yellow birds together. So I'll find the evening grosbeaks over here. These were our evening grosbeaks. Um, and these ones have, I think, much more of the typical posture of the bird, and the proportions are better on these. Also, uh, a lot of these wings and things, there's detail in here that you really don't see in the field. So I think these will when reduced, these will be more accurate pictures. I like this guy. This guy might go on the cover of the book. That's a great gray owl. Um, so yeah, so let's just look at one more here. Like here's this absolutely gorgeous duck. Have all the water birds here. Yeah, this was that duck. And it's okay to kind of help you be able to identify it. But these illustrations here, um, have much more kind of the feeling of the bird. So I've been having fun, and what I wanted to do is to share with you my process for making these illustrations. Um, let's see, there's yellow-headed blackbirds. Those are such cool birds. And my other old yellow-headed blackbird is okay. Um, I think that these ones, I like these new ones better. This is a juvenile dipper. I'm also going to include some little insets with little things like birds sitting on rocks, waxwings kind of clustered in the tops of trees. You never find one waxwing. They're always in a big waxwing party. So I want to have some little insets. But my big goal for today is to show you my process for making these illustrations. And what the um, let's see. Um, the process I've kind of tried to come up with kind of a streamlined, fast process for doing these illustrations. And so we will complete one, maybe two illustrations today. And we're going to go all the way from the start to finish. The first thing that I do is I make a drawing on, these are pieces of tissue paper. I'm making these preliminary drawings of the posture of the bird on these. And then I'm transferring it over to a piece of drawing paper. And then, see, we saw that duck, right? And then finishing it on a piece of paper. If I do all of the preliminary drawings on my first sheet of paper, then sometimes I mess up the surface of my paper with all the erasing I do. So I'm going to teach you folks how to kind of do a simple transfer technique. This is also useful for some birds. Like, let's see if I use the same. Yeah, these two birds here are on the same template. So I drew one bird and then used that same sketch. Let's see here. Yeah, there. So I drew this bird and then transferred that to the page here and the page here. And that allowed me to then make my drawings happen more quickly. Let's see if I have, yeah, look at these. So these two birds, it's the same template. So I was able to draw the bird once, transfer that to the paper, transfer it to the paper again, change the plumage. And that was fun. So for these swallows in flight, what I did is I had one drawing and I used the same drawing for drawing the bird's back and the bird's belly. I just sort of changed sort of how some of these lines were overlapping. So that saved me a bunch of time. Let's take a look at how I am doing this. I'm going to put all these drawings safely over to the side. And the first drawing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to do a drawing of a woodhouse jay. So Western scrub jay gets split into two different species. When we get in there and we look at the genetics of them, there are these two genetically distinct populations, and also the patterns on them are subtly different. I'll show you what the master David Sibley did in his book. I love David Sibley's drawings. David Sibley's drawings are very, very useful, especially for field guide. His genius was that he sort of showed you the sorts of details that you actually pick up on in the field. So he's been really inspiring to me. Let's go to the document camera again, and I'll show you the basic differences. Like here's the it used to be when these were all in the same species, there were two versions of it, right? So there was the Pacific version, and look at how it has this very clear collar, more of a stripy throat, brighter undersides, brighter blue, zoom on that even more, right? So here is a different field guide, and you're seeing these same things. Here is the coastal version, looking all crisp. Here is this interior version. Here's the interior version, much more muted. So grayer belly, undertail coverts. And so that's and slight blue tint in those undertail coverts. So white undertail coverts, slightly blue-gray over here. That's really cool. Let's do this bird. The first thing I think about is what posture do I want to put the bird in? And I want to put it in a fairly typical posture. Very often when scrub jays sit, they will have a very up and down posture. They sit very vertically. When they're hopping around in the grass, their tail is more horizontal, but then after a while, they kind of take on a very vertical posture. So I will probably do that. I also have a personal love of birds in vertical posture because when I was starting to bird watch, my dad taught me this feature. And then all the way home, every scrub jay that was on the wires, on the telephone wires that we were passing, um, all these birds have this posture, and I was going, Dad, there's that one. There's the scrub jay again. There's the scrub jay again. And I was identifying them by their posture, and my dad was proud of me, and so that really made me hooked on birds. So this is also a bird that I particularly like. For reference material here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a series of websites, and I want to introduce to you 3 websites that I find really, really useful. And so I am going to go video. Oh, actually, sorry, share screen and Google Chrome. Right. So here's an amazing website. Our friends over at the California Academy of Sciences created this thing called iNaturalist. And what it is if you go out and you see something really interesting, a nature thing, you can photograph it and send it into iNaturalist. If you've got it identified already, they'll just verify that. If you are not sure on what it is, then a whole community of people will look at your photograph and help you identify it. But then all these photographs are geo-referenced and date stamped, and so like eBird, it tells us a lot about what is where. So I'm just going to into the search bar here, type Woodhouse Jay. And let's try Woodhouse's Scrub Jay. And it brings up this page. All right, so here are the bunch of different observations. This isn't the way I like to search it. What I like to do is click on species here, and then click on the photograph here. So what I did is I clicked on species, click on photograph, and then I click on it. It's got information about the bird, right, and why it's cool. And you click on view more. And then you get this view, and this view is absolutely gold. You're like, oh, wow, look at all of these Woodhouse scrub jay photographs from people all over the place. And oh, there's one in the one's in the kind of with this really steep posture. And so what I'm initially doing here is I'm looking for a posture that I like, and I'll get posture from one photograph or part of the posture from one photograph. other details from other photographs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch together parts of all of these. Like this one here, this photograph here is in really good light. I really like that. This one here, the shadows are a little bit heavier, but I'm liking the posture here. So I think I'm going to do something kind of similar posture to this, and then bounce over and get some details from that other one. I want to get, like, I can take this posture, I can take this guy, or look at you, a little bit of a collar in there, huh? And so what you're going to do is you're going to see me kind of going around, and I'm going to be getting different little scraps of information from different birds and splicing those together. I like you. Yeah, this kind of really kind of grayed out J. That that's feeling really Woodhouse to me, right? Um, Not a clear collar, really dusky here. That's really cool. So I just initially spending a little bit of time kind of bouncing around, kind of looking at the birds and figuring out who I like. Yeah, these two have very nice vertical postures. Yeah, I think I like this. So I'm going to click on this. It brings me up to this so this was a photograph taken by better naturalist. um, so this person's a regular contributor to this. Really nice photograph there. And you click on it, you can see, you can kind of get into these photographs with more detail. But I'm now going to use this to get me um, to help me be able to uh, get my posture. So I am going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to start sharing again. And this time I'm going to do a split screen. On one side, we're going to look at that photograph. And just want to say things about using other people's photographs. Don't copy a photograph in its entirety from somebody else unless you get their permission, if you're going to be using this in a publication. Um, and what uh, the photographs are other people's, intellectual property, and we as artists, we want to we want to be respectful of that. So you're going to see I'm not going to be trying to make a faithful reproduction of this photograph, but I'm going to be using this to kind of get a little bit of the posture. I'm going to be using this to kind of get a little bit of proportions of this bird. Um, and I am now going to share my desktop. And Vea, are you seeing the bird on the left and my hand on the right?
Yes.
Excellent. Um, I'm going to get a piece of tracing paper. This is European design vellum. And I am going to start with a light kind of posture sketch. I'm going to be using my non-photo blue pencil. And let's see if this, when I'm drawing, oh, again, yeah, it doesn't show up on your screen. So normally I would use this posture, this pencil for this. But I'm going to use this one here so that you can kind of see how I'm blocking this thing in. And So I'm kind of getting this is sort of the angle of the back, something like that. Um, I'm putting in a ball for its head, and if the head is that big, look off this direction. There's an angle that comes down under the throat. It comes out a little bit and then down, giving me a body ball about like this. So I'm now thinking, how big do I want to make this body relative to that head? So if I'm drawing a chickadee, it would be a smaller body relative to the head. So that's where I get the proportion. So I got this negative shape, a head, this negative shape, and I'm putting in my body. We're going to have our tail sticking out like this. Maybe I'm going to make my tail kind of down even a little bit more. So I'm going to kind of going, this isn't quite what I'm seeing in the photograph, but I'm making mine go down because that's just going to give me more of a vertical J, a little bit of undertail coverts here. My eye is going to be, I need space for my lores. My eye is going to be right in here. I'd like to kind of place my eye. And then I'm going to just kind of sketch around to see if I have room for these major features. Ear patch is going to be in here. Maybe make that a little bit smaller so I have enough room for your throat. This one has a little bit of a collar. As bold as you get in the coastal scrub jay. Um, I have that gray part on the back. It's taking kind of a little triangle about this big. And the wing comes down, is going over here. Covert feathers in here, more covert feathers in here. I think I want this wing to be longer, a little bit. Yeah. How does that change where the belly comes in? I'm making mine a little bit more vertical because I, in my head, scrub jays, I just love it when they do that vertical posture, and then a little foot, it's going to come down, another little foot will come down, and I will have a branch in like that. So you see, I'm getting some basic proportions from this photograph. I've changed a few things. I'm not doing a total clone of it. If you are using, I mentioned that there are other websites. One website that I love is seeingbirds.com. And oh, look at all these wonderful days. Let's see, look at how this look at that posture right there. Right? That's so scrub jay. That's but this is the coastal version with a really bold here in bright white, much brighter parts, bigger eyebrow. But this website, if you can actually copy these photographs directly, because the photographer of Vivek Kenzodi has given us permission to use these for our art. That's an incredibly useful thing to us. Um, Here's another website called Seeing Birds. Um, and unfortunately, the search bar in this last time I tried it wasn't working very well, but I'm going to try this. Let's see. Yeah. There's going to be tons of photographs of scrub jays here, but that search bar just isn't working right now. So what you do is you kind of go down until you see jays. So be on the lookout for jays. Where are the Jays? Where are the Jays? Paper strikes. Where's Jays? No Jays. No Jays. Oh, where did the Jays go? The Jays. Oh, there they are, Jays and Crows. And what Mexican scrub jay? Where's Western scrub jay? Um, that sure looks like a woodhouse jay, doesn't it? Kind of dull, dingy. I wonder where this photograph was taken. Um, doesn't tell me where. Um, but you see how you can get a lot of of details from sites like these and be able to put those into your picture. This one again, the coastal version, not the bird that I'm drawing, but I can see some nice scrub jay details there. So using that, I am going to let's see, I've got some bristles that are over my bill in here. And on this drawing, I am not so worried about um, the my line work because it's just going to be something for transferring things over. So these, so they're sort of very kind of consistent, heavy line work. I'm just interested in kind of getting that shape. Maybe I'll bounce back to iNaturalist. Portions here.
We're sorry, Jack, we're not
Oh,
able to see.
thank you. A little color, very big one. And birdie back. Let's see. There's the alula. I'm going to tuck my alula in. That bird's alula is hanging down. Primary coverts, secondary feathers, primary feathers. And then there's the other wing here. Can overlap part of it. Let's take a look at this bird again. Yeah, like that. Wing flipping over like that.
Oh, sorry, Jack, we again cannot.
Oh, yeah. That's I just get caught up in the drawing and forget that we're doing a class together.
It's fun to see you in flow state.
Easily distracted. So this one, I want that back claw hanging over the branch here. And it's going to have its other little birdie leg coming down. Maybe I'll have this. branch sticking over here. And then I would be able to see some toes kind of hanging around the other side. And set middle toe is a little bit longer. Birds, I used to draw all my birds with kind of a death grip on the branch. And then looking at some drawings by Lawrence McQueen, he had these birds in these sort of looser kind of grips on the branch. And then I started looking at birds and I realized that birds really did that. And I went, oh, I didn't realize that. That's really what you do. Huh. I'll draw my birds the way they really look.
Sorry, it blocked again.
Oh, somehow I got a tail. All right. And then I kind of just sort of back up from it. Or look at your drawing upside down. See what are there, does this look weird besides defying gravity? You can look at your drawings in a mirror, another very effective way of doing things. And see if does this still kind of look right to you. So you can, think about just looking at your bird from a slightly different perspective. There's something wrong with my head. There's something wrong with my head. Yeah. Bird's got its bill slightly open, mine doesn't, but that's okay. Slightly heavier bill, maybe less of forehead. I'm gonna flatten your head a little bit. Don't want a big angle there. So you see, I can kind of, if I did all this fussing around on my piece of good drawing paper, then a lot of these sort of pencil marks, they make smudgy stuff all over it, and that mess could also put indentations in the paper that might affect the way that the watercolor works. So sometimes when I'll do an illustration, we call this the preliminary drawing. And I'm going to kind of get something I'm going to like, yeah, I like that. That's working for me. I think you need bigger tarsus, thicker tarsus. Yeah. Makes you look more like the combat bird you are rather than, yeah, now you've got bigger, tougher legs. You're ready to kind of get there into the shrubbery and like it. All right. So I'm satisfied with the bird, and now I'm going to put it on here. Now, if you don't have, I'll show you something interesting called transfer paper in a moment. If you don't have that, one thing you can do is just take your drawing, flip it over like this, and then you trace over those lines, and the graphite that you have on this side gets pushed down onto the paper. And then you have your bird facing the other direction. Another solution to this is this stuff called transfer paper. This is wax-free transfer paper, and you can go to an art supply store and pick this stuff up. And it's a wonderful way of getting your preliminary drawing onto your piece of paper. And what it is it's a big roll of paper that has graphite on one side and not on the other. And I have used this now for about 70 different drawings. And if you kind of tilt it, you can see some of those pale lines on there, but you can just keep reusing the same piece of paper again and again and again and again and again. And what I do is I position my bird where I want it on the page. If I were doing kind of just a single portrait of this, I would, take my bird and put it in the middle of my page or where I want it. But because I'm going to be doing a bunch of illustrations of birds, I am going to put this one more off to the side, so I'll have room for another bird right here. I have to do the pinyon jay too. So now I hold my hand on the page so that the bird doesn't really move relative the tissue paper. I'm going to put this under here. Now I hold them both down. I don't want this either piece of paper to move once I start drawing. Here I go. And now I just have to remember I'm starting up here on the back and I'm going to play Trace the Bird. Again, I'm not worried about my line quality here. And I'm just coming along with a fairly consistent weight of line. Keeping my hand on the piece of paper so that it doesn't shift and move. I don't think I've ever shown people transfer paper in any of my classes. Not something that I'd be doing when I'd be out field sketching, but this is for an illustration. And then holding this carefully, I can lift them both up to see what I didn't trace over. And looks like I got pretty well. But sometimes I'll do this and I'm like, oh, I didn't do the back of the bird. Right, I didn't do some line somewhere, and then I'll come in and be able to fill that in. Now, I can take this off, and this is just a kind of a thick graphite line that hasn't embossed my paper significantly. Um, it doesn't have a good line quality to it. It has no detail. So I'm going to take my kneaded eraser here, and I'm going to lighten this up. I just want it to be the lightest little ghost of a suggestion of the position of my bird. So, and I press down and I lift up. So when you press down with a kneaded eraser, it's picking up the graphite. So I just go tap, 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 tap. Right. So now you barely see anything, and I'm going to redraw the bird. Now this is my final illustration. I've already worked out my bird's basic shape. And oh yeah, look at this. I'm catching myself. That. There's my bird. And now my drawing is a little bit more slow. I'm looking back at the reference material. These lines will show up in the final drawing. So I just take a little bit more care. Patience with them. I have a little orphan Annie eye. Eye ring. So my sleepy feathers under my eye. My lores right here, that kind of dark area. It's going to connect the eye and the beak. And have the edge of the ear patch in here. Oops. See what we want to do for that. Where was that other bird's?
Oh, sorry, Jack. The
Oh yeah.
oh,
Wow.
uh-oh.
Little tiny collar. Part back here, the nape, back of my bird. I have my nape kind of come down into that back a little bit, just kind of makes that head turned towards me a little bit. Not really seeing that in the photograph, but
I hope sorry to I hope I'm not interrupting process too much, but is it possible to scooch? Ah, perfect. Thank you.
absolutely. Anytime, please let me know. And this bird also have it's neat. They both have that far wing kind of flipped over. Wing on the far side, and then our wing on the near side. Now, what I used to do is I would draw in the edges of every feather, right? And then I would paint that blue. And let's see how that looked. I don't do that anymore, and I'll show you why. Um, so my old approach is I did all this work to understand the wing structure. So then you look, see how I'm drawing a line, like here's this feather, here's this feather, every one of those feathers. I'm drawing a little hard line around it to say like, look, here's my median secondary coverts, here's my greater secondary coverts. I'm drawing and diagramming in the location of every feather. Um, when you're looking at birds, it kind of gives this sort of pine cone. See how that looks like a pine cone? Birds don't look like pine cones. No, they don't look like pine cones. They're not a pine cone. And look at that, right? So there's all those like drawing in, look, edge of the feather, 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 feather. Because I had studied those and I learned what they did and where they went. But now what I try to do is I try to suggest it without showing the heavy black line around every feather because that's not what I see. Um, so you'll get kind of a sense of there's maybe a little bit of some feathering here. And I do want to kind of maybe pop in my alula here on the back. I used to like draw in all these edges of the secondary feathers. No, not so much. I'm going to suggest a little bit of it. And primary feather sticking in there. I'm going to take some of this belly floof and stick it over edges here. Undertail coverts. And then those, oh yeah, we want this chest here. Kind of suggested this is floofy feathers rather than a hard plastic blob. And then those thicker tarsus. Now I'm mostly just doing a little kind of outline of these toes. Sometimes on the back of the toe, there's kind of a little bit of a blob before you get to the uh, before you get to the claw. All right. There you go. There's my little bird kind of blocked in. And now I'm going to, whose coloration is going to really guide me here? I'm going to go back to this smorgasbord page. And as you just keep scrolling on it, there's just more and more and more of these wonderful little birds. Look at you. Oh, look at you. Look at you, old Woodhouse Jay. Ah, yeah, just sort of lighter blue, gray in here, a slight little blue tint in there. I am seeing not as blue as it was suggested to me. That's good. Oh, now you just keep scrolling, and there's inspiration bird, inspiration bird, inspiration bird. Nice lighting, nice lighting. I like that. So this is again, the website is iNaturalist, and it is just a gold mine for our work here. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. So I click on it, I click on it. There it is. If I click on it more, it's big. Look at your cool tongue. Oh, you are such a neat bird. Mm. Oh, this is a very tasty bird. That's a very tasty bird. All right, so I'm going to use that as my kind of color chart and bring this guy back in. And I'm going to start with a subtle shadow on the belly and places where the shadow might fall. And for that, I'm going to use a little bit of shadow violet here. Let's see. I've got my little paint kit here. This is some purple and some gray. I've tested off on the side of the paper here, kind of to see what color I'm really getting, and waited till it kind of became fairly diluted. So I now know when I'm coming in here, it's not going to be overly heavy. It's not going to be too wet. So this is just a little bit of shadow under the wing there. Some shadow under the belly, a little bit of shadow. I'm going to put some shadow on the belly here. And on this, I'm going to do this with a little bit of some floofy marks. See that? It looks, I'm using the tip of this just to kind of suggest that this is um, more like shaggy feathers. And I'm not going all the way to the edge of the bird because that's giving me a little bit of kind of a reflected light zone in there. Now I clean my brush. Just have the water brush here, and I'm just wiping on a little rag. And now what do I want to do? I'm going to go to some of the gray of that belly. Let's zoom out. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Oh, that's not zooming out. There we go. That's zooming. So I am going to mess around this way so we can see what I'm doing. There's this light mousy gray on the belly. I'm going to take, I've got this black tourmaline. So I've got all my names of my paint here, and this black tourmaline here. It looks black here, but you're going to see it's actually a gray. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of brown. And I'm going to test it on a piece of paper to see what color it is. And then I'm going to fan the tip of my brush like that. And I'm going to use that as you might be thinking to yourself, like, oh, you made it too dark. But actually, there's a little bit of doing that on purpose, and you'll see why right at the end of this drawing. So that belly that's white, I made it a little bit too dark. And what? Excuse me. My daughter told me I always sneeze 3 times. And so now I'm trying to see if I can sneeze different numbers of times. And I just did a single sneeze. I'll have to let her know. I'm going to look at that back color. A little bit darker. Yeah, that's okay. First, just putting in back. Now, this blue color, it's going to be so tempting to get a really intense, vivid blue. And I have to dial that back. Um, so I'm going to initially just, when I'm trying to match the color, I'm looking through at the color on the white palette there, comparing that with what I get on a little piece of paper. I'm going to start on the wing, because if I mess up the wing, it's not as bad as messing up the head. And I'm just going to put a coat of this across the whole business. Dip down more. Um, that feels too pale, too anemic. But the nice thing about watercolor is that you can always add another coat.
Would you be able to, there we go. Thank you.
Ah, thank you.
We were wondering too, is that the large water brush?
This is the large fine point aquash water brush from Pentel. And I, uh, I like the way it allows me to kind of fan it and get texture with it. Um, it also um, it allows me to I can, if I kind of roll the tip, get a very fine point on it. Right now, I'm not as worried about getting a fine point because I'm just blocking in big zones of color. I should point out something that's kind of intentional that I'm doing. Um, when I go to, say, make a mark here, I very often point the tip of the brush towards the edge of it. And that allows me to get much more of kind of a crisp, fine edge there. So I point the brush towards the side where I want sort of have the the where we're having kind of a sharp, crisp edge is going to be the most important. This is hard for me because I'm so used, I live on the coast and I am so used to seeing brighter colors in the scrub jays. So my tendency is to want to really push this. Um, leaving a little bit of white up here. Ah, you know, I'm trying to turn this into a coastal scrub jay, so I'm gonna actually obliterate this little white highlight here. I can put a little bit of that in with my gel pen. Now, I'm gonna put in that little dark cheek. Resting it on another piece of paper. This is what I meant by spinning it. See how I'm spinning the tip of my brush like this? That rolls the point into it, a really nice fine tip. Now, you get this ear pinch. If I left a little highlight in that eye, if I accidentally obliterated, I would just put it back in later with a white gel pen. Not worried about leaving highlights on the bill here, as I will put those in with my colored pencil with me. Oh, I forgot this little blue part in there. Ah. Let's make your legs dark. Now this whole bird is feeling so nice and pale. For the legs, I am not worrying about any highlights on them, not worrying about any scales or detail, and you'll see why at the end. I'll come by and just add a little bit of colored pencil onto those toes, and it just pops them. Right now, I just want the toes to be dark shapes. So you can get those little claws with this brush. This is the large. I'm resting the side of my hand down on the paper. Otherwise, I get a little bit of a tremor in my hand and it makes it hard to control my brush. Yeah, I've just got those toesies drooping over the edge there to make that eye a little bit darker in the lowers, underside of the beak. Now I'm going to take a look at several birds' wings. And so out of this one, nice job, Viri de Plante. I love your photograph. I like to look at who these photographers are, and just as I'm sketching along, I have these little conversations with people that I've never met and probably never will meet. And oh, look at you. You've got a little bit of more dusky right around there. Is that a thing? Is that something you do? Let's take a look at other birds. What are you doing? A little bit more intense up here. Ah. What are you doing? Yeah, why not? Why not? Um, what a good looking bird. Okay. So I'm just getting a sense of I want a little bit darker in wingtip. Um, in my upper, oh, I have to have blue in here. And then a lot of these had that little bit of, I'm flicking my brush in the direction of the floof on this. I've fanned my brush and Your undertale coverts. Let's look at the undertale covert colors in a bunch of these Woodhouse Jays. Like you, what are you doing, buddy? Oh, look how blue that is. Ah, crazy blue, but less so here. What about you? Can't tell. Ah, looking grayish. Looking darker chest. Look at that nice dark chest. Glad we got that darker chest. So white with a little blue tinge. Little blue tinge in here. These are more pale. So that seems to be variable. Some individuals have more blue. That's funny with the water fountain there. Yeah, I don't think I want to really go crazy with the blue. Let's put a little bit of dingy into these undertail coverts and then put a little bit of a blue hint in there. But it's got to be subtle. Make sure I don't have too much blue on my brush. That. Now, and the next part is going to be fun as well. This next part, there are parts of the drawing process that I really, really enjoy. And this next part is going to be one of those. Primary coverts right there. Now, for this next step, I need my drawing here to be nice and dry. I'm going to hit it with a hairdryer. Right, here we go. I'm going to use, for these tools, I'm going to go back to my pencil and I'm going to crisp up a bunch of the edges. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come along and I am just going to clean up and make some of the edges, the margins of this a little bit stronger. Also, because this will be reduced in the field guide, I need it to kind of read clearly. A little shadow under this. You see how I used to have like this whole wing would be line, 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 line. I'm kind of trying to get myself to be a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to erase my tail, the line work that I have around it, the line work around here, and then redraw it with a nice, deliberate, clean. I'm making some what I call bilberry marks here, little floof marks. Making the belly of this thing just a little fluffier. Nice. Let's watch it. See these legs here. Watch what happens when I erase them. I erase my line work, and then I redo it with just. And see, that's kind of a little bit of a wobbly line. But then if I come in here with my pencil, I pop that in, and now it's this just nice straight tube. Wrote. Beak. So this is kind of tightened up with that line work a little bit. But now, say hello to my little friend. Right? White pencil. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go, actually, before I do, I think I need my back just to be a hair darker. So I am, before I put my pencil on, just going to look at my values one more time. Now, let's hit that with the hair dryer one more time, and then we'll bust out the white pencil, and the drawing is done. Oh, this part is fun. I'm going to sharpen my pencil. I'm going to just spin it lightly on another little piece of paper that makes the tip a little bit less fragile. And on a few of these feathers here in the wing, I'm going to suggest that there are some pale edges. of this. This is going to be big fun. So out here, just a little bit of feathery texture. And this little pencil is really up in texture. Worried about this part being too dark before. And on the legs, let's go look at somebody's legs, and then I'll show you. Oh yeah, we can see this guy's leg. But no, let's get better leg. Let's get better leg. Like, who's got a really? Show me your legs. Show me your legs. Show me your legs. Yeah, yeah. There you go. Okay, Woodhouse. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. All right. So we see there's some scales on this, but I'm not going to draw in every scale. No, 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 no. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move my little bird over here. And then I'm just going to take my white pencil and I'm going to sharpen again. And I am now a little bit of light on these scales. So there's a few that go right across here. And I'm just going to suggest those. And then there's maybe a little bit of light bouncing up here. There's a little bit of light kind of coming in here across the tip. I just broke the tip of my pencil. See just a little bit of these little highlights. And your brain then goes like, oh, look, there's some sort of scaly thing going on there. And your brain like fills everything in. If I get in here and I draw in every little scale, I don't need to do that. I love sort of texturizing these things. And now my final little thing, I kind of left this for the end for myself because I often like to kind of leave myself like a little gift, a little Easter egg. And um, that when I get to that part of a drawing, it's just really fun. And for this, I get to put in these little white feathers above the eye. That was fun to do. I think I like your book. All right. Now, beside me right here, that's a scanner. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. So if you just like to do your own drawings for your own sake, this is the end of the part that's going to be relevant for you. But what I want to do now is show you how I take this image, bring it into Photoshop, what I do with it to change it into an illustration that I'm ready just to go whip into the field guide. So this next step, I'm going to try to take this and I'm going to turn it into a digital tool that I can then put into a field guide. So I'm going to drop it onto my scanner here. And I'm going to invite you to come join me in the world of Photoshop. Um, Photoshop you can do really cool things with. I primarily use it to take an illustration and turn it into something, a digital resource that I can put into a book or use in a poster or a t-shirt or something like that. But um, the I can also correct mistakes that I made. For instance, um, when I drew the other day, yeah, here it is. I have this nice kind of hunchy bunchy um, black crown night heron, but I now look at it and kind of like there's something really off with your head proportions. So I can go into Photoshop and I can make its head a little bit smaller. I made its head too big. Um, but the I'm not going to have to do that with this J because up front we kind of looked for our proportions. So let's go over to Photoshop. Or actually, let's see. I am going to Vea, I'm going to share a screen, and this is the first time I'm sort of sharing a Photoshop resource like this, and I'm going to need you to help me kind of let me know what you're seeing on your end, okay?
Got it.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to share a screen, and I'll take you to Photoshop. Here we go. You're seeing a welcome to Photoshop screen.
Yes.
Now, are you now seeing okay, we're waiting for you're seeing a little beach ball. Do, 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 do. From Photoshop, I have are you seeing something that says Silverfast 9 on your screen?
Nope. We're saying welcome to Photoshop with a bunch of pictures of birds and your mouse.
Okay. So I'm going to have to do this. So from Photoshop, I can directly open up the scanner, and it's a program called that I use called Silverfast. And so I'm now going to take you folks over to Silverfast. We're going to scan together, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like. So I say I'm going to start my scanning, and here we are in Silverfast. This is what's called a preview from a previous thing that I had scanned when I was drawing that bird. And I'm going to make a pre-scan. And there is my bird.
Right now, we're not seeing a bird. We're just seeing a monarch butterfly.
Oh, why aren't you showing Silverfast? All right, let's try this again. We're going to stop share. Um, we're going to try this one more time. Share screen. bird now?
Yes, now we are seeing a bird
Oh,
with a red box.
thank you very much. All right, so this is the area that I'm going to scan in. And what I'm doing is I'm just putting that over my bird, bringing it all the way to the tip of the tail. And I am going to scan it. And then what that does is it brings me back into Photoshop. And this bird is open in Photoshop. So in Photoshop, what I want to do is I don't want this bird to be on a white background. I want this bird to be trimmed all the way to the edges of the bird. So if I put it on top of something else, um, I can pile several birds up on top of each other and have them poking out from behind each other without being in the middle of a big white square. So this is called the magic wand tool right over here. And if I click it, you get this sort of army of dancing ants that go all the way around the selected part. If I hold down my shift key, I can also, they'll show you this is the part that is currently selected, right? If I hold down the shift key, I can also get this area between its legs. See that? Um, this over in the bottom left-hand corner, little thing, this view shows me the selection, but this time as everything that is selected is white, what is not selected is pink. And what I'm going to try to do is make my whole bird pink. So I'm going to go over to a paintbrush tool here. You see, if anything I paint with this becomes pink. And I am going to pick out all the parts of the bird. And so now I have the bird selected. And I am also going to select more of its stick. I'm basically telling the computer, what parts of this illustration are in and what part are out. There's also going to be a few extraneous little dots and pixels that are out here um, that I don't want. And so what I'm going to now do is take the eraser and I'm just going to brush around out here in case there are any little kind of, blotches on the screen. See, this is an eraser. If I accidentally went through here, so as I'm going around here, I am erasing. All right. Now, here is my process. My first step is to take this layer called background, and there's a little lock on it, and I want to be able to manipulate this layer more. So I'm going to click on that, and it's now no longer the background. And I can even name this. This is the scanned image. Right. Um, minute. Yeah. So now it is a scanned image, and I am going to, if I hit delete right now, it will delete all of that white paper. So what you see is all that white paper is gone. That checkerboard pattern shows me that that is blank canvas. I'm now going to trim this to get rid of to make the file a little bit smaller. I'm going to trim away all the transparent pixels around the edges. So you see it kind of tucks the head of the bird up there. This also shows me that I must have going to tell it that I only want to keep this much. And I'm going to tell it to trim again. So trim. Sorry, this time I'm telling it to crop to that line. Image crop. There it is. All right. Now, this used to be, I'm now going to select, I'm going to tell it to inverse the selection. So no pixels were selected. Sorry, I needed to go back to my magic wand one more time. I'm going to select these parts here, and I'm going to tell the computer to make an inverse of that, so it only has the bird now selected. I have my bird selected, and this next step is this is kind of a magic thing. This is really cool. I am going to go here to layers. I'm going to go to the layers palette. And from that, I'm going to select new adjustment layer as levels. Are you seeing my these little boxes? Are you seeing when I'm going up to the menus, Vea, are you seeing all the menus that I'm dropping down?
Yes, we're seeing the
Okay,
menus.
good. I've said, so make an adjustment layer, and this little dialog over here has popped up. What this is a
Oh,
diagram.
wait, sorry. Are we talking, is it a dialogue that looks a little bit like a chart, or is it a pop-up box? Sorry.
There was a pop-up box where I went to layers to new adjustment layer.
We saw that. Okay, good.
Okay. But look at what I can do here. Do you see where my little mouse is? I'm going to
Yeah.
grab this little point here, and I'm going to bring, if I bring this more over here, see how things get darker? I can change sort of what the dark and the light point of the whole image is. What I like to do is I like to grab my dark point and bring it right over to what my sort of darkest point is. Here it is without the layers. Here it is with that. And what happens, it goes from being kind of this anemic picture to whoop. People can also adjust their light level if, but I usually just sort of leave that where it is. This middle handle allows you to kind of adjust the midpoint. And what I do is I just sort of play around with this till I kind of get it like that's too light, that's too dark. Kind of get this to be like where I want it to be. And I think somewhere right about there is going to be good for Woodhouse. Then I hit File, Save, and I'm going to call this J, Woodhouse, and hit Save. And that is now, that's now a file that's available for me to use. I can take that and it'll be, all the white part will be gone, and I can take that image and I can go whoop, and I can drop it into anything that I'm making. Using the levels there to kind of pull the dark point over to, it has this little histogram that sort of shows where your lights and darks are. And I'll bring the dark point over to the start of where it shows my scanned darks are. And that's usually about the extent of all the tweaking that I have to do. So if you are using Photoshop to kind of take these things and sort of turn them into illustrations, when we started this class, I had, I knew I wanted to draw the bird. I now have a scanned image of the bird in my file, and so I do that again, and then I do that again, and then I do that again, and do that again, and the result is that I end up with a file with hundreds of images that I can then repurpose for all sorts of things. So if I'm doing a different project and I want a woodhouse Jay, I just pull up that file and there I've got it. So if you're an illustrator, try to retain the rights to the illustrations that you do, because then you can repurpose those for all sorts of different things. You can, if you're making a T-shirt, you can put that Woodhouse J on the T-shirt. If you're making a field guide for another area and the Woodhouse J is in that area, you already have that drawn. So if you are doing illustrations for somebody else, when you are negotiating your contract with them, think to yourself, are these illustrations that I'm ever going to be wanting to use again? Let's say hypothetically you're drawing, I don't know, all the amphibians in your area and you sign away the rights to those. You want to kind of repurpose those. You then have to um, you then you don't own those anymore if you sign those rights away. But if, as you are kind of making your contract, you can give your client limited, non-exclusive rights to use those. So that means limited, they can't do anything they want to those. You continue to have the copyright on those. So you're saying, I'm giving you permission to use it for this book that you're doing. That's great. You want to make a T-shirt about that? Come back and talk to me, and we can renegotiate that. That'll be no problem. But we'll just have a conversation about it, and maybe say like, yeah, use that illustration. Or you say, or maybe like, can you support me in this way, right? So you give limited non-exclusive rights, and then you also have the rights to your own work that you can repurpose in all sorts of other ways. That's essentially my process. I started with making that first drawing. I was looking at several different illustrations and kind of putting this part from this bird in, this part from this bird in. The more you understand bird anatomy, the easier that gets to do. I then used transfer paper, and I transferred it over to my piece of paper, and I um, uh, then use my kneaded eraser to kind of make that transfer a little bit lighter on my page, redrew it, painted it over it, painted a little bit darker than I was going to kind of want things to be. Because then when I was able to put that white pencil in, that lightened things again, but also left more texture in it. Then we all worked through that Photoshop process. Oh, I also want to point out that point in the process where at the end I was kind of getting there with the pencil, kind of crisping up those edges, ding, kind of just ties that picture together. That's kind of my illustration process in a nutshell. And I hope that you enjoyed being in this nutshell. What am I doing here in this nutshell, right? So let's bring on the mad botanist. Avea, you really had to keep me on screen a bunch there. Thank you so much for doing that.
Mm,
Um,
my pleasure. Actually, you were excellent all on your own, and it was super delightful getting to see all of that, all of your process. So thank you for that. Um,
Absolutely.
if there's time, we have some questions that have been showing up in the chat. You mind if I
Yes,
throw?
yes, please, please. Oh, and I see Jack. I haven't seen you in a long time. Good to see you. I just looked up into the chat there. So it's good to see a bunch of my friends here. So Jack, do you see, hold on. Do you see your bear on the wall over there? Yeah. All right. Yes. So please, what are those questions?
Okay, so one big question is, folks are wondering, for that final illustration that you did, the one where after you transferred, then you also painted, what sort of paper were you using for that? Like line weight, texture, that kind of thing?
Oh, so this is a kind of Strathmore paper. And th what I did is I went to a big paper warehouse where you could test samples. So they had just tons of paper from all sorts of different brands, and I looked at which ones worked well with my watercolor, and I was looking for ones that took watercolor and also the white was very bright white, because if I want that white of my paper to pop through. Unfortunately, the Strathmore paper that I was using for that, they did something with it, and the sort of sizing that they're doing on the paper now, that kind of paper is difficult to use. It used to be great. Now it's meh. So I need to go back to that store. So I can't actually recommend a specific paper type right now because I need to go back, and I discovered that I bought like all these like reams of this paper that's like you put a real dark down onto it and a bunch of it kind of gets absorbed, and then it doesn't dry as dark as you put it down. It used to be like kind of what you see is what you get. Now it's got much more of a drying shift with this new type of paper. So I don't have a strong paper recommendation at this point. One good sort of go-to thing that you can find that will work generally really well for you until that point is if you go to your local art supply store and get yourself some Bristol board. Bristol board is kind of, it's a heavier type of paper that often takes all sorts of media very well, so that can work for you.
Excellent.
But hey, Avea, if we do go to the big art store, do you want to go with me? And there's a taqueria near there. We could hit up. All right.
Would love to.
So, all right. Well, we'll do that. Because I do need to go back there to I want to get a recommendation for kind of like here's a type of paper that works really well. I also for just here's the logistical thing, because I'm making all of these illustrations, it's super convenient to have them on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, right? And if I am doing things on a big sheet of Bristol board, you now have this big sheet of Bristol board, and how do you store this? What do you do? If you're selling the original and giving it to a friend, that's fine. But otherwise, what I'd have is a whole bunch of sheets of paper that would be odd sizes. And then like maybe you could put those into a portfolio, or you can get one of those little kind of flat drawer, sort of flat file things. But it becomes an absolute nuisance to manage all this sort of stuff. So these things, because they're all 8.5 by 11, what I do is I just tape a piece of tissue paper over the front of it. I can tape that onto the back of it, and I can stick those into a file folder, and they kind of go into a drawer, and I don't have a massive paper management issue. So for those of you who are illustrators out there, like when I got out of the science illustration program in Santa Cruz, I had all these different drawings that we worked on through the project, and they were all different sizes, and a bunch of them were really big format. Like, what do you do with that stuff? Where do you put it? And then as you kind of keep going forward, the pile of this stuff just grows, and so now I have them in vertical folders, and I've got all the bird ones in one folder. I've got all the mammal ones in another folder, and I can just pull that folder out and kind of go boop, 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 pull the one out if I want to see it again. So that's a logistical thing. So if it's possible to do the illustration on an 8.5 by 11, do it on an 8.5 by 11. Because then also when you're kind of putting a piece of tissue paper over the top of it, they already come cut to 8.5 by 11. Or you can have like a big roll, and then you're tearing things out, and then it came from a roll, so it's kind of curled, and you're going, there's got to be an easier way. 8.5 by 11.
That was going to be my next question, is by the tissue paper, you mean that vellum that you were using? So.
Yeah. Let me show you kind of what this next sort of step would look like. We'll go over here. I don't want to just stick this into the file folder because things could get smudged. That would be sad after all that work. So is there one here where I've already scanned everybody? All right. So I've got my little great gray owl there. I don't want it to get messed up. What I do is I take one more sheet of the vellum. Let's bounce over to document camera. All right, so here it is. I have a roll of kind of drafting tape for art. This is artist tape, so it doesn't really stick to paper, and it doesn't leave a sticky residue behind. I just take a little piece of this and I line this up. And there you go. So this then makes a little hinge like that. And I can then put this in that file folder without worrying about it smudging. Another thing that I now get in the habit of doing is putting the date on the back. And that's a good way of storing your work.
Awesome. Um, this is wonderfully insightful,
This is
and
kind of a look under the hood of what the illustration process is.
this is incredibly inspiring. Thank you for this. And so we have more questions coming on in. So Bethany wants to know what was the make of that tape again? That artist
This
tape.
one here, I got this it's just called artist tape. So you go into any art supply store. This one came from Pearl Art Supplies, so it's Pearl artist tape. It's also pH neutral. So some tapes have an acid in them, and so we try to avoid. So this is pH neutral. This is pH neutral. Basically, if you've ever seen like an old book where the pages have turned yellow and become brittle, that's because there's acid in the paper, and over time it eats the paper. So old manuscripts and things, you touch them and they fall apart because the acid has eaten up the paper. So if you have pH neutral paper, then that's not an issue.
That's good to know. Okay, that's very good to know. Thank you. Some more questions. A question just came in from Matthew Helms. That he saw 3 to 4 illustrations per page. So how large or small are all each of the original drawings, and how much room do you need to work with?
Um, so yeah, this is the size of drawings that will then be reduced to things kind of this size. All right. So they're roughly half size. Um, some things I ended up drawing bigger. Where's that big duck? There's a big duck around here somewhere. Big duck, big duck, big duck. Anyway, there was a bigger duck. So if, but you know, the nice thing when you do these illustrations, with the plants, I drew all my plants life size. With when if you draw a drawing and then you reduce it for the book, the whole thing tightens up, and everybody thinks you've got like super fine motor control to like these little things. No, these are all enlargements, and it's very helpful when if you're trying to like. I was looking at David Sibley's artwork and trying to like how are you making your marks? Like I want to learn from you. Like how do you make those marks? But if you're looking at a reduction of it, it's hard to visualize that. So that's why I Second. That's why I really like these these Sibley calendars. So once kind of calendar buying season is over, a bunch of bookstores will try to get rid of their inventory of calendars. And so you go in there and you can get a really cheap calendar. And this gives me these David Sibley drawings at the size that he painted them. And that is so for learning from somebody else's artwork. So these are gouache illustrations. You know, then this gets shrunk down to something really small. That's the illustration that you see in the book, and you can then get a sense of like, oh, I see how you, I see how you made those those warblers. So it's much easier to learn from the drawings where you can see the individual pencil strokes and pen strokes, right? Compare that with when it gets reduced in the book. I just saw those bluebirds. Bluebirds, where did you go? There you are. Yeah, compare which is easier to learn from. So I I like to study this to see how it turned into those how those illustrations were made. So I'm making mine. If I'm drawing it this big, it's kind of going to be like that in the field guide. Except for the duck, it started off this big, but it's going to end up.
Excellent. Thank you. Do we have time for a few more questions?
Sure, if y'all are good for it, absolutely.
So many questions. Okay, here we go. Um, one question is, I'm guessing that the answer might be no, but you know how on some illustrations you put a bug in or your initials as a way of marking that it's your work. Do you do that with every illustration in your book or not so much?
I don't do that with any of the illustrations for the book, and the reason is I want to just be able to take that illustration and drop it into the book. If there are all these little, when they put the little, and if all those little initials are there, then you'd have to kind of somehow cover all those up. Um, if you're doing an illustration for, say, a poster or something, then I'll put the bug back in. But not on each little bird on it, somewhere on that illustration.
That makes
Um,
just extra work within Photoshop if you, okay, that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. So I just try to have, just the bird, and then and then if I if it's going to be something like when it's in here, because it says your name on the cover, then I don't need to have any bugs with any of those illustrations. Sometimes when there are illustrations that are done by different illustrators in the same book, sometimes people will put a little thing in, but sometimes the publishers don't want that. Um, the but it's fun to look through books and kind of figure out who the different illustrators are. Like something like this it's a neat book. This is the National Geographic Guide to Birds. Um, you can look through this, and there's a bunch of different illustrators. You can figure out like who are some of your favorite ones. Um, um, oh, Susan Becker says you need many bugs on every page. So the term bug here we're using when means that so there's just to be clear. Um, when we say bugs, I don't mean these guys, right? So I put these little insects crawling across my index in the book. So not that kind of bug, but the term bug means when somebody puts their initials in, that's referred to as their bug. Um, and sometimes people have like a little specific way that they do it. It's their bug. You can make actually your own bug. Like take your initials, play with your initials, and figure out like how you can put those together in a kind of graphic way that makes a cool bug. Um, and but apparently some people have told me that they didn't know that these are going to be waiting for them in the index of the book, and then they came to the index and thought that there were real insects in there and put little shadows in with them to and that some people were like, ah! like this. There's an ant in my book, and reported trying to brush off the ant, and it didn't go anywhere. So that's kind of fun.
I love that. Um, yeah, especially with the shadows. If you're not careful, then the shadows will just like
Yeah. Ah!
compliment compliment to you then as an illustrator if it's real enough that people are like off.
Well,
But
that's the advantage of doing the reduction. You draw a little insect and then you make it small, and everybody like it just looks really buggy.
Actually, speaking of bugs and plants, um, we have a question about whether there's going to be any new bug or plant or other illustrations in the book aside from the birdies and the new
Yep, absolutely. So there will be I'm not gonna, so most of the plants are going to stay the same um, because it's physically impossible for me to get back up to the Sierra to redraw all those because that took running around chasing wildflowers for 6.5 years. And I'm now a papa, and my responsibility is being here, not up in the mountains, as much as the mountains are calling, and I would love to go, but um, my life is just so much richer, being here right now. But some of those illustrations definitely need to get redone. And I also, what I'm looking forward to, there was the first flower that I did on this little mountain creek, and with my dad fly fishing down the river from me, and the um, one of the things I'm going to do to sort of close out my work on this book is I'm going to go back to that same creek and redraw that plant. It was the first one that started off uh, the whole project. So I'm going to spend some time there to remember him. So the lower reaches of Glass Creek Meadow.
I'm very thankful to your father for sharing with you his love of nature and for inspiring you to share your love of nature with us.
Thank
Thank you
you.
to Bob
Yeah,
Moss.
yeah, it is. I mean, what a gift to have given me. A love of nature, comfort in the outdoors, and a joy of exploring natural history. He really role modeled that for me, and I try to live into that.
You do. Um, Goodness, sorry. What other? Sorry.
Don't
Do
be
you have
sorry
time?
about.
Do, do you have time for a couple more questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. Um, so one question that we'd had earlier was, will the new edition be available in like the whole book or also like You know how you had those ones that were like birds for bird hikers? Will they be available in that form too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And also looking at how to make a some for those ultralight backpackers out there. A bunch of ultralight backpackers said, "I know we don't want more time on our devices, but you know, I I need the field guide, and my backpack can't like this is too heavy. Like this is like a 2 days meal, right? The, the weight of this book. I need to make my backpack lighter. So I'm going to try to come up with a digital version.
Wow, that's neat and very thoughtful. Like, props to you for that. Props to you for just going to be like a little geek for a moment here. Props to you for all of the times that you spend listening and thinking about ways to like incorporate the new things that you've learned and the new things that you've heard into your dynamics and into how you make things accessible and into how you challenge yourself to change and you share what you learn and your process and your generosity are incredibly inspiring.
Oh,
I
thank
I've
you.
heard you say this about Marley, and I say this about you. I love the way that you walk in this world, Jack.
Uh, and back to you, Avea. You also inspire me. And that's one reason why I love doing these workshops is that we get to play together on a regular basis. Let me tell you something about kind of looking at um, kind of getting feedback and sort of taking direction from other people. That was actually a big part of the design process of this. So that the book came about by when I was working on it, I made draft versions of sections of it and eventually of the whole thing. So this is and I would just go to Kinko's and print this out. And then I would send this up into the Sierra Nevada with naturalist friends and had them write all over it to sort of change things about what was useful, what was not working, and then um, took that feedback to make the final one. So there's a lot of you know iterations of it. I was trying to use that kind of design test design build test redesign kind of just complete change the book again and again. So I got a lot of tons of feedback, and if you're willing to kind of get feedback on your work, it helps you in all sorts of different areas, because what might work for me might not work for another person. So I would get this into the hands of people who are professional naturalists. I would get this in the hands of scout groups. I would get this in the hands of people who had families with young kids, and they were like, oh, I like this, and I got a lot of suggestions that then went into revising revising the book. But yeah, there were many iterations before we got to what this is.
Awesome. Thank you. There had been an earlier question about whether or not any of the order of the sections might change around. But it sounds like you were sent it up with people to sort of test that, which is really cool to hear that.
Yeah, like a lot of the field guides are made from the perspective of somebody, like they're made like you're the person who's making the book on identifying birds is somebody who's probably an ornithologist. And what what makes sense to them about the way, like if you've spent your life studying ornithology, it makes perfect sense to put the birds in the book in the order of our understanding of bird evolution. And so as we go through this book phylogenetically, um, the more kind of sort of less derived basic birds, words with like that don't even have hollow bones, are at the front of the book, and then more derived species towards the back. If you're a bird ever evolutionary biologist, that makes perfect sense as a layout of the book. Of course, but most of most people don't kind of look at a bird and kind of go like, wow, that looks really derived. You know, um, we go like, look, little bird, it's blue. So I didn't put my book in the order of bird evolution. I've got it organized. Um, my After I tested it with folks, what I found um, is that, like, for most people, they see a wildflower and they say like, oh, look at that, it's a yellow wildflower with 5 petals. So if you could go flower yellow, looking up in the corner, there's 5. So here's 5 petaled yellow flowers. And then, if you see a bird, you go like, look, it's a little blue bird. Um, if I go birds, blue, there's blue birds. And that allows you kind of to speed dial to the sort of things you're looking at. But I didn't organize the mammals by color because then there'd just be a big brown section. But assuming that they're mostly all brown, what I did is I did the small, divided them into the small, medium, and large. Um, so if it's a big mammal, if it's a mid-sized mammal, or if it's a small mammal, because then you end up, you're looking at these little guys, and oh, they're scrappy. Um, but I'm really looking forward to the next edition. Like, some of these do need to get redrawn. Like, that's a funky drawing of a skunk. You can still tell it's a skunk because, like, but let's just kind of look at that. Like, really, um, you know, yeah, you can tell it's a skunk because it's got the narrow head, and anything with like black body with a white stripe on it, everybody goes to skunk. But we can. I gotta give better respect to skunks. And there's other fun things like this says there's a note next to the Wolverine that says probably extirpated, but if seen, photograph and report sighting to the Department of Fish and Game. And then a couple of months after this book came out, we had um, a biologist who had camera traps got a photograph of a Wolverine in the Sierra Nevada. Um, oh, Sarah saw a live one near Mammoth. I am so jealous of your Wolverine. You got to see a Wolverine. That is so cool. I've never seen a Wolverine in the field, but I would love to think someday um, I would. Oh, you saw the Wolverine prints, tracks in fresh snow. It is so cool. Yeah, the Wolverines have shown up in the vicinity of the Sierra Nevada Field Campus. So that's where we are. That's where we're heading when we're having our nature journaling retreat. You might want to do it this summer. I've been there a bunch of times, never seen a Wolverine, but you'll know that you are walking in the woods where the Wolverines live. There's also wolves in that region of the Sierra now, and so um, and antelope and elk, and I get to add all those into the book. That's going to be oh, Ray Bonto, I wish you could be there with us. That would be really, really fun. And another time. Um, Ray Bonto, I was just looking through photographs of our adventures in the Lake District the other day, and I was just going like, oh yeah, I remember that. Those cool little caves and um, canyons were just spectacular. Um, so were there any other questions?
Oh, there are. Oh, here are a couple of ones that are showing up. One of them is Matthew Helms wants to know, how do you decide what to include or not? And then also, what proportion of species published have you never had a chance to observe in the wild? Just based off of your Wolverine question.
So all the plants were drawn from life in the field. Um, The insects were drawn from collections at the California Academy of Sciences, based on databases they had. I went through those. I'm now going to redo that, really cross-referencing with iNaturalist to see what species are really commonly occurring. So there's a few, probably, and I'll be able to find a number of species of insects that I didn't have, but people are regularly recording up there in the mountains. Um, with um, things like um, with the mammals, there's like there's like so many species of chipmunks in the Sierra Nevada, and so not only have I not seen the wolverine, I haven't seen all the chipmunks. Um, but uh, but like, there's chipmunks. There's chipmunks. Um, so the worldwide hub of chipmunk diversity is in the Sierra Nevada. But when I made the book, I had never seen a great gray owl. So even some of the birds I did I did without ever seeing them. And then I was bemoaning that to a friend of mine, who lives just outside of Yosemite, and I was saying like I've never seen a great gray owl, and they went, "Oh, really?" Hmm. And so the next morning, I was staying at their place, and they said, "Jack, why don't you grab your telescope and just go, just take a walk around the edges of this meadow." And they knew that there was this great gray owl that fed there in a habitat where it wasn't supposed to be, but fed there every morning. And they sent me out there and just sort of like waiting for me to discover the great gray owl. And there it was on this. There's this little tree. In the middle of the meadow, this little pine tree sapling, maybe a couple of meters tall, and then there's this huge great gray owl sitting on top of it with this big half dome face. It was, oh yeah, there's a bunch of things that I haven't seen, but I think of it as like potential energy. Like I kind of like, ooh, I'd like to see you, and it makes kind of, and then when I there's so much anticipation that when I do get to see it, it just makes it even more fun. So I used to, sit up late at night with my flashlight when it's supposed to be in bed, kind of looking at field guides and kind of like, ooh, I want to see you. I want to see you. Will you be my little friend? I had all those little golden guides, and I'd look through like the Golden Pond guide, and I'd look through all these. So I was a field guide junkie.
Maybe we need to like for nature journalers who know where like we're going to travel a place, maybe we need to start exchanging bucket lists so that if any nature journalers know of a particular critter that you haven't seen, then we can be for each other. Hey, the way that your friends gave you that gift by saying, go to this field right here. It'd be cool to be able to do that for each other.
Yeah. And on some of those things, with some of the really rare things, like if you knew where the Wolverine hangs out, it's probably best that you don't tell me, because I would want to go look at the Wolverine. And the Wolverine's one of these things that's like, I frankly like to be left alone, you know? Yeah, I'm cool. Um, and yeah, and then, um, but yeah, something that we are going to, that we're looking at is through the Wild Wonder Foundation, um, creating this interactive chart that allows you to, like, how we have the map, right, the list right now of like, I'm a nature journal educator in this area. We want to have something where you can put yourself on the map, so that to help people find nature journaling buddies near them, and that will be really useful. So you can find teachers and mentors, but also just like other people just like you who want to kind of go out and geek out with other people. We want to help people make connections with each other, um, through on a sort of private, secure portal. Um, and so we're looking at what all these sort of things we can do to make sure we're also taking care, help people meet each other, but also respect people's privacy.
That sounds like it will be like that will be such an important service. especially for people who live in areas where it's a lot harder to find each other. Because I know we're super duper lucky over here in the Bay Area, but there's so many other folks who maybe don't have a nature journal club begun yet where they are, or maybe beginning a club's a lot of work, but you just want that one hiking buddy who also likes to take their time and draw things and three amazing feet, as Rosemary Moscow says. So props to y'all for creating that. I'm going to be excited for that.
That's gonna be fun. That'll be, yeah, to do this with other people. It's such a joy. Um, and also you get better at nature journaling that way because you get to see the way that somebody else is approaching it.
Absolutely. And also props to you for also modeling responsible, like animal ethics and animal mindfulness about, don't mess with the Wolverine. If the Wolverine likes to be left alone, we don't want to go spying on the Wolverine. Or at least if we look, it's got to be from a very big distance. So props to you for also modeling that. Um, a question that we had is also you sort of answered it. It seems too, but do you design the page layouts, or are you working with somebody who? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I've got Adobe InDesign, and so these are all Adobe InDesign layouts. And what I wanted to do is I was looking at, I want to get stuff dense. I want to get similar things close to each other. And so a big part of making the book was, part of it was, um, how do um, I get, draw all the illustrations, but then also making the, um, uh, doing that layout and what specific words have to tie in with each little thing. Um, One of the challenges of the second edition is that a bunch of the original InDesign files got corrupted and are unopenable. So we're looking at how to kind of redo that all from scratch. And that took a while in the first place. So that's kind of rough. Um, so it'll take a while. But the bird section is in progress, and that's good.
That's awesome. But also, we're sorry that Cthulhu has been striking again, apparently, except
Man, Rascal.
in an especially horrible way. Seriously,
Yeah, that's bad form. That's bad.
very bad. For those of you who might be wondering what we're talking about, whenever we have issues with internet or programs or just cell phone reception, we blame Cthulhu. This one lovely elder, kind of eldritch god figure that looks kind of like a space octopus, as written by H.P. Lovecraft. We blame Cthulhu for all of the technological issues that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Lovecraft was this sort of a fantasy writer who has this that sort of imagines a world where things look basically like they are, but there's this sort of these deep, really yucky creatures that are kind of lurking out there that you never want to bump into. And so yeah, we blame all of our. So if you're wondering, like, let me get Cthulhu here for a second.
Also, in a moment, I think I'll ask maybe the one or two more questions that I could find on my list. But if anybody has any burning questions, either please write them in the chat, or I can make sure to collect them to ask Jack at a later time as well. And I'm sorry if I missed your question. So you have a little time to write it into the chat if you need. Here, I'll minimize my screen.
So there we go. There's this is the That's the Cthulhu kitchen apron. So basically, big old octopus guy. But that's um
I love that you have a Cthulhu kitchen apron.
yeah. I mean, because you gotta like when you bake, and also my brother gave this to me. It gave me a Cthulhu stuffy that I drive around with in my car. And here's the cool thing about that: like, it's the ultimate way to never get road rage. Because you've got this stuffy, and part of the kind of um, the deal with the kind of Cthulhu things, they're so horrible looking that if you look at it, you go insane. And so if somebody cuts me off, instead of getting mad at them, I grab the stuffy and I point the stuffy at them, which makes me laugh, and then I don't get mad because like there's this person who like did this aggressive driving thing instead of going like you are mad, and then I get all this cortisol and like lines at the head and turning red and like, but instead for like point this like how could you get really mad if you're like pointing a stuffed animal at somebody like all right, and so that's good times, good times.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that recently, I don't know if it's true or not, but I recently read that Lovecraft has a little bit of thalassophobia or fear of the deep ocean. So it puts his whole like Cthulhu into a completely different context. When you imagine he took his fear of deep ocean and made it into a space eldritch abomination god. So that's kind of like extra, makes you scared to look up sometimes. Um, okay, a couple more questions. So we had two more questions about paper, but they're more about paper now. Um, Raybonta wants to know, what toned paper brand do you use now?
Mm. Strathmore, Strathmore Tone Paper Journal. I love those. Let's bring Ray Bonto in to the conversation. Hey, you can now unmute and
Uh,
bam! Hi there.
I heard you say that the Strathmore was declining.
Oh, no. The brand of Strathmore paper that I used for these little things. It was part of a series that they had like that people
Ah,
use as like cover stock for photocopiers and these sort of things. And they'd come in these big kind of blocks of like a ream of the little thing of paper, but so they weren't actually making that paper for my purposes. They were
oh,
making that paper for people who have photocopy machines. And it works fine for the photocopying stuff that people are doing, sort of a heavy cardstock paper. But they ended up for a while, they had this amazing pH neutral,
mm,
super bright white, took watercolor very, very well, had a nice little slight vellum texture so that it would play with pencil nicely. It was just like the perfect paper, but then so they changed something with the sizing with that. So that, but the Strathmore paper that you get in the art supply store, um, and the Strathmore journals, that they haven't changed the way they're making that paper anymore. So
oh,
that stuff is still 5 stars. Love those journals. They make very good paper, and if there's any Strathmore executives who are watching this, let me know and I'll let you know the kind of paper that you used to like. And then you can market that to everybody. Every artist would want it. Otherwise, I have to find a different paper. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. I have, of all the new birds that I have to redraw, I have one bird left now. So that's pretty cool. Is there anything cool going on in your journal these days?
Oh, yeah. Oh, this was today. The thing is, my water brush was going a bit dry.
Oh, yeah.
It
Sometimes when that
started
happens to me, I
getting
don't
clogged,
notice it. Then I go like, why is my water
and
brush not working? And then I go like, oh,
and then I accidentally used a gel pen, so it began to soak in. So it was a
yeah.
bit of a disaster, but guess it's okay.
But I like your proportions on that bird.
Thanks. Right. And
Oh. Let's just hold here for a bit. That is really interesting. The way you're handling the foliage is an effect that um, I'm liking the contrast that I see in those branches and the leaves. You've got light against dark and dark against light going on. Um, those light leaves against the dark trunks really pop, and then those dark leaves against the white paper, also pop. The textures here are really Cool. This is I find trees from this distance really challenging, and uh, this is really exciting to see.
Thank you.
What species is that?
I don't know. I think it's either probably actually I have no idea.
That's really cool. Wow, that's so I want to encourage you to play around with that approach even more and sort of see what what comes of that. Um, and if you come up with some strategies, please let me know. Maybe we can do a little tree drawing workshop together. I like what I'm seeing there with what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Very good to see you.
So I see we have a few more questions, but I see Kate raising her hand first. So I'll let Kate go and then I'll ask the last few questions.
Excellent. Well, hey there, Kate.
Hello again. I just want to
Now,
say
now no longer on a horse.
no, he doesn't. Well, I haven't tried bringing him inside, but it seemed like a questionable idea. I'll try that
That,
next
that-
week.
yeah, that might not go as well. But do you know
What is
the
it like?
the Lyle Lovett song, "If I Had a Horse"?
No.
No, sorry, "If I Had a Boat." Sorry, "If I Had a Boat."
Hmm.
All right, so this is I've got home that your homework
Okay.
is to go check out the Lyle Lovett song "If I Had a Boat." Um, but the general refrain from it is, um, if I had a boat, I'd go out on the ocean, and if I had a pony, I'd ride it on my boat. It's,
You know, there is a horse trailer trainer in England named Emma Massingale, and she took her ponies on a sailboat to go visit their ancestors on the Shetland Isles, and it was incredibly silly. And I highly recommend people go check out her YouTube channel because she does some hilarious things with horses and
oh,
enjoy
she
it.
actually put her ponies on her boat.
Yes, they also have a trailer that she pulls with a bike because why not?
A horse trailer.
So they're very, very tiny. The Shetland ponies, they probably weigh, I don't know, 200 to 400 pounds each. So I'm not sure why she's putting them in a trailer behind a bike, but why not?
I respect that. So tell me this person's name again.
Emma Massingale.
Go, Emma.
Yeah, yeah, that is the kind of horse training I am here to promote. But anyways, I want to say thank you for doing this really amazing class. It's given me some great tools for moving forward and
Oh, what of these tools were you were like, ooh, I want to play with that?
well, mostly the creating just a bunch of like finished asset things, and I have the perfect sketchbook to do it right now. It's a size where I can scan things, but um right now I'm just doing a bird page just to practice, and I think it'd be really fun to just work on filling up pages with different like kind of small studies using that system of the, the transfer paper and the
Oh, you got your transfer paper right there.
yeah, I just started working on that. But I was wondering if you had any brands of the transfer paper that you liked, or if you thought they're all kind of equitable, because mine,
I
I have a time getting the right light enough lines from it.
I I have not really experimented with different brands. I got a long time ago one box of this. I might have even gotten this in high school,
Okay.
and it is this. There's a roll inside this thing, and I still have a ton of this stuff today because you can use that one sheet again and again and again and again and again and again.
Unless Meep shreds it, which is the problem,
Oh,
right?
that's
'Cause
right. You
basically,
do have the
um,
meat factor.
yeah, you have Cthulhu, I have Meep, both
Yes,
are
that's
retarded in various forms. So yeah, I will have to look into yours though, because I think that might be a good answer. I actually got mine on Amazon also in high school, and it still lasted me. So yeah, maybe I'll give that a shot. But thank you. I love this, and I can't wait to show you some sketchbook pages full of like little tiny birds that I can then scan into Photoshop and turn into digital assets. Birds selling.
yes. That's right. So then all of a sudden you have um let me just kind of what this then looks like down the line. Um, hold on a second. I will bring up share screen here. So, after doing this for a while, there is, I have these, um, you know, all sorts of, let's go for here. Um, you know, I have, lots of material. And I've got this one folder down here called single species. And in this, you know, these are all, single illustrations of,
Wow, that's phenomenal. I've started doing something like this. Mostly I have it as 'cause I haven't been creating like specific things yet, aside from the salamander thing, but I have a project folder for that, and I just have a general one for all my art stuff. Um, but this is great to see. I mean, moving into the like technical illustration stuff has really been difficult, and I feel like you give me a really great toolbox right there for a way to create things and also practice at the same time. So I'm really excited to put this to work and hopefully next week have some really cool things to show you.
yeah. So you then, there's, it then becomes this you can then repurpose these things. So I love to do projects. I really especially kind of lean into projects where I go like, oh, I could repurpose that in a bajillion different ways.
Yeah, and I mean just having that folder of digital assets you can pull out, I mean that really makes, I think, illustration more viable as a career thing. And it's always weird to think about art in terms of money, but also it's like, well, unfortunately, that is,
Yeah, no, yeah, we have to make this work economically for ourselves, right?
and that makes it so much more doable. I mean, it'd be nice if I just had like a rich patron who would just fund me like drawing birds and other things all the time, but that hasn't happened yet. So,
Yeah. Well, what I've found sort of on that point is that there's different kind of models for doing different things. Um, so I produce a lot of stuff that is free or low cost,
right,
and I encourage people where they are able to help make a donation to support me doing this stuff. And my experience is that, first of all, when I didn't ask, nobody did, right? But then make it easy for people to give a donation to you. And it's weird with money. We
mhm,
that we have this kind of cultural prohibition about talking about money or asking for money. And people have this sort of idea that if you're doing something that is good and you're authentic, then you should be doing it for free,
right,
right? Which basically that we like the idea of the starving artists. Why should artists be starving? They shouldn't be. This is something that in other cultures they are supported. But when I kind of turn around and I actually ask people and let people know that if you, by the way, anybody watching this, if it's possible to make a donation to support me and my work, you can go to johnmuirlaws.com. As a matter of fact, let's look at uh, uh, you can where did I make I made a little screen where I could put up my contact information, but no, I can't find it. But go to johnmuirlaws.com and you can make a donation there. And it makes a huge difference to me and my family. And if you're not able to do that at this time, um, then please don't, not do this because of that. I want you drawing and playing in nature, but just do an act of kindness in your community that you otherwise might not have done, and the world just becomes a better place. And so when I kind of put that ask out to the world, by the way, I'm asking, what was amazing is that people really stepped up, and and the and there are people who could like there's not like the mega patron,
Right. That was
but
mostly a history joke,
yeah,
but
no, but they used to be that way. Um, but people still are, you know, supporting. A lot of my kind of economic support comes from small donations from people. Um, and so another thing you can do is make it easy for people who want to donate to you. So they don't have to like what's your Zelly, or something like that. So on my website, you can go and you can make a donation, and you can make it one time or you can make it every month. And that's that helps. But in our culture, in sort of Western culture, like you're not supposed to talk about money.
right.
Um, but it is um, it is uh, but another way of thinking about it. Oh, I've got a super gymnastic squirrel out here. Who's got a peanut? Where did you get a peanut? Oh, you got a peanut from my neighbor. My neighbor has peanuts. The squirrel came from my neighbor's.
Well, that's exciting.
Um, the but yeah, to give yourself permission to ask, and and that doesn't mean like there's this. I think it is such a kind of it is really unhelpful to when we kind of have the idea that if you're doing something that is good, then that um, you then you should be hungry.
Right. Well, especially, I mean, finding that balance between, working and moving so that you can put more of your like working time into creating things and getting into that swing of things.
That's
And
right.
actually I'm still getting over the hump of like getting good enough where I feel like I can ask for money for my work and feel like I can do things on a professional level.
So your illustrations are really, really high quality. You have been putting in a ton of hours and you are producing professional level stuff.
Well,
Um,
my thoughts like for that Salamander's field guide that I keep like putting on the back burner. I mean, I've been trying to teach myself how to do it and have a consistent style because I feel like I'm not able to replicate stuff. And I've moved forward a bit on that where I'm getting closer, but I want to have kind of a style that really flows throughout the entirety of anything that I'm making. And
well,
I,
but here's what's also going to happen is by the time you're done with that project, you're going to be a much better
right,
illustrator than when you started. And then you're going to say to yourself, I should go back to the start and then redo all those things. And
mm,
then and it will be continuously rolling. So when I was working on this book, I was thinking, okay, now I need to redraw all my birds. And bird artist Keith Hansen said to me, like, no, Jack, you just need to publish that. And the perfect is the enemy of the good. And
okay, good point.
it is okay to just let it out into the world, and um, that you created something that is really useful and has value. It sort of reminds me of so there are illustrators who have spent much less time working at their craft than you have, and don't have nearly the skill set that you have, that are working professionally as illustrators. But it kind of just sort of reminds me of like the Wizard of Oz, when the Scarecrow wishes, that I wish I had a brain, and the Wizard of Oz says that you've got an incredible brain, and but there's something that other people have that you don't have, a diploma, and
Right.
gives a diploma, right? And but basically this is kind of giving you permission to sort of step into that space. And so sometimes people think like, if I go through some program, then I am good enough because I have gone through some program. Um, but um, and that then psychologically gives them permission to call themselves an illustrator. So if what you need is permission, I here officially give you permission to consider yourself a scientific illustrator.
Great. Does that mean I should get to work on that salamander book?
It means you get well, if the salamander book is something that you are passionate about and that you want to do, it is you have got everything you need. Um, there's a poem by Mary Oliver called "The Journey," and the first lines of it are, "One day you finally knew what you had to do and began."
Right.
And but if you think like, I'm that we do a lot of talk to ourselves like, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. And the um I think that also there may be um that there also might be some cultural conditioning in that, because something that the messages that often get sent to young girls is to hold back and kind of be supportive of other people rather than letting yourself shine.
Right.
And little boys are always told like, you go get them, you know and the um your ability to illustrate is um, far surpasses many people who consider themselves professional illustrators. And if you want to step into that space, you have everything it takes to do that, except a diploma. So maybe we should make one for you.
Perfect. I'll leave that up to you. That is very encouraging. But also it is also really helpful to have all these amazing resources that you provide. So most of the art skills and development I've done over the last 3 years, I want to say now, has been largely due to your tutelage. So, I can't thank you enough for that, and especially for making that available at whatever price point I can afford at the moment.
Yeah,
So
that's what I do. Um, and but the other part of that is, in that time, approximately how many sketchbooks have you filled in those 3 years?
we can check. Shall I do that really quick?
Yes, let's do that. All right, because this is it's pencil miles. So what you're seeing over there on the side of the screen, folks, is you make your marks, and then you make your marks, and then you make your marks, and then you rinse and repeat.
Okay, so this is probably missing maybe 3 to 5 that were lost during a breakup. But this is approximately 3 years of sketchbooks. And it's very heavy, so I'm gonna set it down now.
So I'm counting 16 there, so that would be
That's
about
good.
20.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's
Yeah. So it's those pencil miles. And then this doesn't, and then just pick a random one and open it up,
uh
and
here's
you'll
the
you'll see
oldest one I have.
these are dense with practice.
Yeah, that's back from February 2022. Um a lot of birds.
Yeah.
And let me see if I can find one. That's kind of just a interesting chunk of time ahead of that. Um, here's July of 2022. I can see a lot of improvement finding the shapes and stuff and
Yeah.
a lot different
Really
and
clean
uh
line and understanding of structure and proportion and anatomy.
yeah, just a lot of neat stuff in there. And then you've seen my more recent stuff, I think, but
Let's grab one recent journal.
yeah. I mean, this is the one where I did just a in-depth study of botany and took just every class you had available for the most part and yeah, so
Yeah. Um,
stuff.
you 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 showed up for the muse. And so the Greeks believed that the way you get better is you had to practice enough to show the muse that you're serious.
Right.
And then the muse comes and plays music at your doorstep.
Well, I mean, I didn't always need that. I had you coming and being available almost every semester for the last 3 years, so you know,
Yeah.
instruction and information in one go. Speaking of going, I better get going soon because Meep and I have
All
to
right.
go pick.
It is great to see you, and thank you for bringing your horse on this morning.
Oh yes, of course. He's always happy to perform. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all of this, and I be excited to show you what I do with the things we went over. So
I,
can't think
I
of it.
I really look forward to seeing that. And if this field guide is something that you really want to make happen, you are ready to do that. You're you're ready.
All right. Well,
And it is scary. So one thing that is if we have in our head that like I'm not ready yet, then you don't then that shields you from the vulnerability of stepping into that space and making it.
right,
The next step, it it takes it is it is it is scary to begin, but um, the more you let yourself walk that path, I think the more you're going to see that this is exactly where you should be.
right,
And one project that you do leads to the next, leads to the next, leads to the next.
right, right. Yeah, well, that would be exciting to see. Yeah,
All right. You have a really good day, and we'll see you again soon.
thank you.
All right. Ivea, check this out. If this is going on 3 hours here. um, and there's still 20 of us here. That's people have got some uh you've got some grit. Um Ivea, can I bring you into the spotlight? Hey there. Um were there any other questions?
There were, but it is like you said, 3 hours in.
3 hours, and we might want to kind of call it a scene.
Yeah, but thank you for everything. I think that everybody here was incredibly inspired by what they learned. So thank you for that.
I really hope that this was useful. Thank you so much for all your help today and collecting all those questions from the chat, keeping me on the screen, and the it is so helpful to me to to do this as a team with you. Um, and I'll see you next time I can get myself up to the we've got our project that we're doing, but also if I go up to the paper store, I can swing by and bring you to this giant paper warehouse where we've got all these little samples, and maybe we can find the new best kind of paper. It would be much more fun to do that with a buddy.
I agree. That would be lovely. And then I can make sure whatever we discover, I'll take notes so I can share with everybody here too.
Excellent. All right. Um, well, until we meet next time, my friends, thank you for being here for the Nature Journal and the Nature Journal workshop. We hope that you had got some useful strategies that you can incorporate into your own game. Until we meet again, I want to encourage people to be a maker, um, to to create, to do this. The best way to kind of do this is to do this. So what if we went and let ourselves do this? Um, and as we do, let's also just continue to water the seeds of kindness within us, those things that bring out the best in us, that help us to interact with people um, with 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 kindness and the best intentions that we can. Um, I think that we as a culture, as a society right now, really need to intentionally practice how we can try to take care of each other and kindness. Um, and I hope that these workshops also kind of help as a meditation in that practice. All right, my friends, we'll see you again soon. Thank you all for being here.